called for this December 11, 2018 at 7 o'clock here in our council chambers. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss a proposed ordinance that's coming before the council. And what it is to opt out of a proposal 1 and to not allow retail marijuana establishments within the city of Dearborn. This is an issue residents have contacted each of us up here by mail, by email, by phone, in person, or even attending some of our council meetings. So we know it's an issue that people are either passionate about it one way or the other. And so one of the things that the council wished to do before we made a final decision on this was to allow for a town hall. I think, I've been here, just completed my 5th year. I don't think we've had a town hall, so this is something new, at least something new in the last few years, and we're hoping to hear from people. We want to make sure that the meeting is led in a very professional, respectful manner, organized. I want people to be able to speak, but I also want people to be respectful of those that are speaking. So if your opinion is a little bit different than somebody else's, please allow them to speak. I am going to go a little bit more into that in a second. But I want to be clear about something. There is no plan by this body of government to go against the intent of the law, which is to legalize marijuana. Because I think some of us have heard that a few times. There's no intent, again, I'm going to repeat it, by the city council to go against the will of the people, the vote of the people that occurred on November 6th. We're not here to ban the legalization of marijuana. That's something that the residents of the state of Michigan voted on and it's passed, and as of December 6th, it's now legal to smoke it. So that's not what we're looking to do. The law has already passed, and whether you agree with it or not, this is what the law is. What we're trying to consider, at least at this point, is whether or not to opt out. And again, and that just means if we do opt out, that means we do not allow certain establishments, marijuana establishments within the city of Dearborn, and that's what's being proposed right now. And one of the things that we've also heard, so I want to clear this up now in case somebody wants to come up and speak about it, is, well, you're going against Proposal 1 by doing that. I just want to make it clear that Proposal 1 does allow the option for cities or governments for municipalities to opt out. So we're not going against what Proposal 1 speaks about. It's actually part of Proposal 1. And so the way I'm going to conduct the meeting today, or the town hall, is I'm going to first, what we'll hear from first our corporation counsel, Ms. Deb Walling, and one of our assistant attorneys as well, Mr. Brad Middleton. And then after that, we can hear from our chief of police, Chief Haddad. And then if council would like to share anything, then that opportunity is given to the council. And after that, then I will allow members of the public to be able to come and speak. And what you can do is you can come up to either podium up here, and there is a 3-minute rule. I'm going to strictly adhere to that. I know sometimes during our council meetings, we may go a little over, but given the size of the audience here today and the number of people that have already made a request to speak, I'm going to strictly adhere to 3 minutes. I'm also going to ask again, please be courteous to those that want to come up here and speak, whether you agree with their opinion or not. This is a democracy. This is our opportunity to speak and say how we feel about things, okay? So with that being said, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Walling. Ms. Walling?
Thank you, Madam Council President, and good evening, everyone. And you have very succinctly stated the fact that the city of Dearborn has no ability to change what the voters approved with respect to the legalization of marijuana, the quantities that people can possess, and in their homes, the plants that they can grow themselves, now that the law has been adopted. What the law does say is that communities,
Just your microphone a little up, please.
what the law does say is that it's up to the local communities, be it a city, a village, or a township, to determine whether or not marijuana establishments should be allowed in that community. If so, how many? So, with that, and it also provides if you are going to allow marijuana establishments, that then you can adopt certain regulations with respect to those, but you can't conflict with any state rules that are yet to be developed. So, you know, the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs has 1 year from the date of the effective date of the statute last week to come up with rules. But in the meantime, if communities adopt rules, they can't conflict with anything that the state ultimately comes up with. So, and this does not have really anything to do with medical marijuana or people that possess medical marijuana, cards, that sort of thing. This is purely focused on medical marijuana, marijuana establishments that includes not just retail sales, but also processing, distributing, transporting, and inspecting the products. So with that, that is the ordinance that's under consideration, and our recommendation was to opt out at least until we see what the state rules are going to be and how other communities are dealing with this. So that's the ordinance that the council's doing.
And, you know, Ms. Wallen, can you speak about, so if an ordinance is put in place, is that set in stone? And I know, and can you also talk about the idea of a sunset provision or anything like that, just so the audience is aware of that?
Right, the proposed ordinance that the council is considering right now has an 18-month sunset, which is, would be July of 2020, that it would end. So the opt-out would be over at that point if the council took no further action prior to that point in time. So if the opt-out ordinance is approved, I mean, the council can change that. The council amends ordinances, you know, whenever the need arises. The council can rescind ordinances whenever the need arises. So this would be no different in that regard.
Okay. Anything from Brad at all?
Yeah, Brad, is in the background thing that you'd like to add on to? Right. Mr. Mendelson's been working on, he drafted the proposed ordinance, and he's also working on the revision of our existing marijuana ordinances so that they can be decriminalized and reflect what the state law has now come in, and the council will see that at upcoming meetings as well.
Brad, if you could speak about that as well as, I know one of the concerns that's come up with residents and Councilman Serena was talking about it, is the fear that medical marijuana licenses or cards will be affected, or will there be any effect of any kind to that?
No, not from the.
Can you speak, put up the microphone?
Yeah, just, thank you.
Thank you, Council President. No, there would be no impact on the current medical marijuana law with the new recreational law. It specifically says in the recreational law that it won't replace or impact in any way the medical marijuana law. The only potential impact would be in terms of the total amount of marijuana someone could personally have if they're also a medical marijuana card holder. But other than that, there's no impact.
Can you speak about the other items?
Sorry, in terms of.
I think Ms. Walling was saying we were going to talk about there would be other ordinances or other issues that come forward before council?
The other ordinance that you just drafted.
Oh, yes.
That the council hasn't seen yet.
Well, Ms. Klein, I think he's also, the Council President is also indicating throughout the email I sent about current ordinances that are in place that are in conflict now with the new law.
That's what he's been working on.
The main one is the marijuana, the criminal marijuana ordinance that the city has, I believe it's 14-158. I have worked on that and completed an amendment of it. I have not turned it in yet for review or anything like that, but it basically adopts and incorporates all of the provisions regarding penalties and criminal offenses that are incorporated in the Michigan regulation, the recreational regulation. It just adopts all those.
There is another one that I had sent to you that indicates about a fee that is collected by the police department on a yearly basis as well.
Oh, that's pertaining to the medical, I believe it's the medical marijuana.
No, I believe it's for inside the home.
For care.
Does that conflict with the new law?
Well, I don't believe it does, Councilman, because, and I haven't had a complete review of that yet, but I don't believe it does because that pertains more to care providers under the Medical Marijuana Act. And that's that's in place before the new recreational law, so I don't see any conflict there, but we're still looking at that.
All right, so I don't want you to speak about something that you haven't thoroughly looked at yet. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, Council President.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Chief Haddad, would you please enlighten us as to what your thoughts are on this?
Good evening, Council President, honorable body. Let me tell you that since it was passed on the 6th of November, we've been researching very heavily on this, and I can tell you that there's no consistent one-size-fits-all. Some communities have 2 commercial sales currently for medical marijuana, and Arbor has 28. So there's a lot of variables out there, but what's been a common theme is that in putting these places online, the municipalities did not have the resources to ensure compliance with the most basic of rules. So my concern along that would be that we have good ordinances that are enforceable and that we have the resources to make sure that they're enforced. The quality of life issues are gonna happen. We deal with them whether they're bars, stores, schools, whatever, and we can deal with that. But to make sure that we properly license, investigate, license, and then hold people in compliance, I think we have to be very thoughtful and make sure we get the best practice. I can tell you that in our city, medical marijuana, the only way we've discovered homes is when people complain about night traffic or bad odors. To date, well, the last 3 years, we've had 49 complaints. Most of the locations opted to go out of business because they were either criminal or didn't want to go through the process. 5 continue to stay open in our city, but the only way we find out again is when citizens call us. There's nobody coming forward. So we have to make sure that our ordinances do provide a mechanism where people come forward and properly report. I think that would be the key to this.
Anything further?
Well, I mean, I could talk all day. I've been researching for weeks, but the traffic and the driving under the influence, that's another whole component for the police department that we have to train on. We can save that for another.
What about, how do you feel about if an establishment is opened within the city boundaries? How does that affect your resources, or does it affect it at all?
Well, I think.
I know that's something that's come up.
It may, just pure parking and crowds, depending on what that looks like. But I think once we see the rules coming down from the state, we'll be better to know how accountable we can hold them to security measures and so on. So until those rules have been swelling stated, I'm very anxious to see what's required of them. Then we can know what would be required of us.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, is there, I know that I spoke to Douglas Main. Is he here in the audience by any chance? All right, he's not. All right, so council, anyone from council like to speak or say anything before I pass it on to the public?
I just want to say it's
Councilman O'Donnell?
wonderful to see this many people here. I think in my 11 years, I have not seen a meeting like this before. So we're all very anxious to hear and learn and get your ideas and opinions. And I want to thank each and every one of you. No one up here has every good idea, and this is democracy in its truest form. So we're very happy that you are all out here today, and appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Councilwoman Herrick?
Thank you again, everybody, for being here. We appreciate everybody who's called or written or emailed or stopped us at the grocery store to share your opinions, because they do vary widely. And as Council President DeBaja said, we know that there are very strong opinions and there are some people who it's not so much an issue to. But we're trying to find a balance across our city. I just want to reiterate for those of you, all of you here are probably aware that it was a very close vote. If you look at just Dearborn's vote on the state proposal, it was only 22 votes different that it passed here in Dearborn. And that's something we take into serious consideration. And we hear you when you're talking, and we're looking forward to hearing more from you today, but when you're talking about your individual circumstances, your family circumstances, the interest of growing new business opportunities here in Dearborn, how that would affect our finances if we get some income from state taxes, or how that would impact our neighborhoods and our schools. So we look forward to hearing more from you tonight, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Councilwoman Burns.
Thank you, Council President. I would echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here tonight. And please know that we all, I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we all really value your time and your energy and your opinions. I know I've received dozens of emails and calls on this issue and have replied to everyone who's reached out. And I really appreciate that. We know that folks are passionate about it. And as Council President mentioned, we are in no way looking to disregard the will of the voters when we consider the fact that this did pass at the state level. It passed by a hair, as Councilwoman Herrick mentioned, in the city. So we're looking at that. We're looking at where in the city folks supported it, how that breaks down, and what that means for us. So there are a lot of different elements at play, a lot of different things to consider. And I look forward to hearing everyone's opinions tonight, and look forward to what I'm sure will be a respectful and really informative for all of us dialogue as we move forward. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else from council? All right, then at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the public, and like I stated earlier, I hope that you guys would respect anyone that comes up here. I do have a list over here, a big stack. You know, it seems, I know Councilman O'Donnell said that, you know, we haven't seen this many people. I think, you know, that there was a hotel rezoning, there was some other issues. So I think this one is a little bigger though, of the bars, you know, that were creating some issues. So it's nice to have public participation. Trust me, we kind of miss it when we're here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so you guys are always welcome to come. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call off some names based on this list over here. I'm going to ask, I have a timer up here. When the 3-minute beeps, please, I hate to be rude to anyone or to appear to be rude, but I'm going to stop you. Once that 3 minutes is up, we're going to move on because this is a room full of people and I have a stack over here. I'd like to give the opportunity for people to speak. I will say this, that if somebody says something and, you know, I assume that some of the statements are going to echo each other, but if you could kindly, you know, if you know your statement's been said more than once, if you wanna come up here and say, I support what was said, and summarize it so that others can also have the opportunity to speak, that would be great too as well. So the first person, if I call your name and you don't wanna speak, that is your right. The first person I'm gonna call is William George, lives on Slivery Lane. Just step forward, state your name, and we already have your address over here. You're a Dearborn resident, I just wanna point that out. And how can we help you?
So I'm William George. So I have a few concerns. I think that no matter how many votes it did pass by, it did pass in the city. So I think that it is going against the will of the people if you decide to outlaw it instead. I also think that there's the opportunity from a business sense, we might miss out on a lot of tax revenue from the state, which I know you didn't cover in your initial statement, but we do miss out on the state tax revenue if we do opt out, which I think is concerning. And also we should be looking at the fact that there's a good chance that new businesses will move in, and that's a great opportunity for the city. And it's a really good chance for us to kind of be at the forefront of this as well. Like, yeah, we can wait for the state to set rules, but let's not outlaw it in the meantime. And I would challenge you guys to maybe be at the forefront of determining what those ordinances are, and maybe setting a good example for the rest of the state instead of waiting for someone else to tell us how we should handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to be clear, we're not outlawing marijuana, smoking marijuana, just not allowing the businesses. All right. And if I could kindly ask everyone to silence their phones, please, that we would appreciate that. All right, the next person I want to call up is Jonathan Akari. And you're a Dearborn resident as well. Jonathan.
Good evening. Thank you for listening to citizen concerns.
Sure, can you just state your name, please?
Jonathan Akari. I'm a lifelong Dearborn resident, product of Dearborn schools, and I currently practice law in the city of Dearborn. I'm glad to hear that the ordinance...
Can you pull the microphone closer?
Yeah, sure. I'm very glad to hear that the ordinance has added a 18-month sunset provision, but I would say even that is unnecessary. As City Council said, the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs has 1 year to come up with regulations and begin issuing licenses. And even at that point, if LARA fails, cities have the option to begin issuing those licenses themselves, or even to limit the number of dispensaries in their cities. I think the state of Michigan has about 10 years experience dealing with medical marijuana dispensaries. We have 9 other states in this country and the District of Columbia who have extensive experience with recreational dispensaries. And like the proposal was entitled, regulate marijuana like alcohol. You know, we have many establishments in our downtown area that serve alcohol. We have 3 gentlemen's clubs in this city that serve alcohol. We have mini marts, grocery stores, even pharmacies that serve alcohol, which by the way would be more accessible to minors than these dispensaries, which would require any patron to be 20 years old or older to even step in the door. So this idea that we're headed into uncharted territory is just absolute nonsense. It's not accurate at all, respectfully. So I am glad to hear that an 18-month sunset provision has been added. I hope at that time the city will see what benefits allowing recreational dispensaries offer. It's estimated $130 million in additional revenue will be generated in the state of Michigan annually because of proposal. Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. It's the age is 21, not 20, just to be clear. All right, Ken Paris.
Sorry, Council President, which question?
The cost benefit analysis, whichever one you want.
You know, probably the one in case it's duplicated by somebody else. My name is Ken Harris. I know this council has had some difficulty making a decision whether they want to opt out or not. I know the ordinance is gonna come before you, but you did have the first reading and made a decision then, not too long thereafter, to put it on hold temporarily and then eventually have a town hall meeting. What that indicates to me, and probably to a lot of other people, is there is some confusion, there's some outcry by the public, residents, both pro and con, as evidenced by the vote. What my concern is, and a suggestion for you, because you're looking for input, is slow down a little bit. This is not something that needs to be made a decision right away, but what about a citizen advisory board? And what I'm talking about is a select group of people from our community, which would include medical, which would include police, which would include our PMDS department, because of regulations and zoning. Somebody from our development corporation on either end of town or both, representatives from the neighborhood associations, just professionals or citizens, however the formula is determined by council or by the city, to get more input to be able to help in this critical decision whether we go forward or not with this. But a citizen advisory board, I'm just recommending this because we all need a little help.
You know, I will say whether we opt out or not, even, let's say for sake of argument, let's say we opt out, but there's a sunset provision. I think that's something that would be beneficial, whether we choose to do it now or later. That's something I think that is a benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Just a quick comment, Ken. As far as difficulty, the issue I think what has arisen is that we found out that it was not legally possible. That's what the delay was. It wasn't a delay from the council. It's because you cannot opt out of a law that hasn't been in effect. So it wasn't that. I think that there was, I'm sure there was a resident that came out in front of us at a meeting, might be out here, that indicated we should do this, and we agree that we need to hear from our residents. But the slowing down or rushing through wasn't the issue. The issue was you cannot enact a law against a law that's not been officially, did not take officially effect. That's what happened with the Corporation Council. I think we have to withdraw it. I just want to clarify.
All right, so the next person I'm gonna call in, and if anyone is interested in speaking, because I know some new people came into the room, there is a green form that you can fill out. Some of them are white, and so you can fill them out. Where are they? Oh, they're up here. So you guys can fill them out and then hand them to the clerk or Ms. Freeman, and she'll give them to me. All right, the next person is going to be Dennis, is it Tino? Or Tino? Is Dennis here?
That's close, Tino is good.
What's the last name? I apologize.
Tino.
Tino?
Yes, you have it.
All right. Please state your name, please.
Dennis Tino, live on Morley Avenue.
Yep.
Yes, I'm against having a solar there.
Can you speak into the microphone,
I
sir?
can, all right. Is this good?
Yes.
I don't think that anyone doubts that widespread use of marijuana will lead to more people using illegal opiates and other threatening drugs. It's just a natural thing to happen, okay? I think that everyone would expect widespread use of marijuana to lead adolescents and young adults to use it. If they see their family members, other people using it, they're likely to use it. We parents and city leaders must put in place restrictions to minimize the use of marijuana by our young children. While there is no way to make marijuana unavailable to our children, we can show a strong stand against its use by not allowing the sale of it in Dearborn. Conversely, storefronts advertising the sale of marijuana will send the wrong message to vulnerable kids. Our city model of keep Dearborn clean demands the prohibition of marijuana being sold here. The decision is really the welfare of our children, our youth, versus the profitability that people keep talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we have Daryl Denakowski. And I'm asking everyone just to state their name, just so the record reflects who's speaking.
Hi, my name's Daryl Donikowski. I've been in Dearborn for many years. And just a couple of things, and actually I've got more questions than comments. Both the attorney and a lot of people here have said that, nothing can happen with the processing or distribution centers, or whatever you want to call them, until we have laws. So what is the actual point of doing an opt-out now when we can't do anything until we get those laws? So that would be one question. The second question would be, looking at, I believe council can decide how many we get, or would make available, and where they would go. And while I respect that, yes, we all talk about the 22 votes, there is a discrepancy when you look at the regional areas. And I would never suggest that we should deny anybody who, in an area that voted strongly against it, they should have one in their area. But I also think that 22 votes is 22 votes. And some council races have been decided by that amount or just a few more. So that's the speaking of the people. I'd also like to ask, going back to your question, the gentleman made a good point about the advertising. Would the council be able to limit how it is advertised and how storefronts could advertise it? That, I think, would be very important. And then just finally, I just want to thank, I know you all have heard from me. Some of you responded to me, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for this opportunity. And I also encourage the Citizens Advisory Council instead of doing an opt-out. Then we could work with the police chief about the proper training and have a good conversation of people who actually know the research and not worry about this opting in, opting out, when we really don't have to right now. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Councilman Abraham, or Bazey?
Thanks.
You guys are working too much.
Just to clarify zoning, the issue on zoning is wherever it's deemed to be zoned okay. So if the determination is that we're gonna allow it to be in places of BB or BA and require it to be so many feet from the school, church, or wherever we decide, at that point, it's then anywhere in the community. We cannot zone by quadrant, right? So we can't go ahead and say, okay, in this quadrant, it's BA, and that's the only quadrant it's BA. Right? Because the person who wants to open one who's BA in a quadrant that maybe voted completely against it has the right to open that. And legally will have no right to stop that person if they meet all of those same qualifications in a zoning district and whatever other clarification notices we put in, similar to any of the other places that exist today. Okay? And for those, I know people we already had one person talk about the 3 adult entertainments. Those
those are grandfathered in, right? There's a reason why there hasn't been a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, or a seventh, but there's only 3. They're grandfathered in, and there's a reason why they never close, because they're grandfathered in. Because the moment they close, they lose their grandfather, all right, and they're done. Then they'd have to come in front of the council and try to get a license, which would probably never occur again unless it was a whole different body, and that's why they still exist.
Sorry.
It wasn't that bad.
All right, Councilman Sereni?
For me, and I appreciate the question, for me though, I mean, I never looked at the votes, just to be clear, to me, it's immaterial. 22, and geographically, definitely doesn't matter to me. I have no idea where they're at, because to me, we represent the entire city. Whether it passed or not, to me, it's not about the will of the people. I believe the people elected us to make decisions. And for me, I have a real concern about labeling, which has not been addressed yet. Record keeping. I don't know how our police department can enforce a facility for labeling a drug improperly if there's no rules in place. So I think that's an important facet for me. And I don't know how we can find somebody to have not played by the rules and license them again when the rules haven't been established. So that's my biggest concern right now. The vote is the vote. And for me, what's most important is what's best interest for the residents in the city of Dearborn at this time right now.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Abraham?
I just have a couple points to address, and I know, I don't think we're really trying to debate this issue tonight. I'm here to listen, but I think it's important that we clarify things so that you all leave with accurate information. So if it appears I'm debating some of the suggestions that come up, there's a lot of rules we have to follow. And I know the gentleman that was just up talked about, can we limit what the signage can say? And we went through an exhaustive ordinance on signage and how we can zone and manage signs in both our commercial and our residential districts. And I don't want to simplify too much a complicated ordinance, but the fact of the matter is, in its simplest form, we can't dictate content of signs. We can tell you how big they are and where you can hang them, but we have a real challenge when it comes to freedom of speech and what you can say and can't say. And I'll defer when I'm done to Corporation Counsel if she wants to correct me or add anything to that for your information, so you walk away with an understanding of how we can manage content of signs. That's the first thing. The second thing about the will of the people, the votes, the fact of the matter is Proposal 1 passed in the state of Michigan. Whether it did or didn't in Dearborn, it did in the state of Michigan, and it did in Dearborn. And like Councilman Sereni stated, whether it's 2 votes or 22 votes or 20,000 votes, it passed. And at that point, I believe this body's been empowered to administrate that proposal and those state rules as they come forward. And one of the components of Proposal 1, like it or not, was giving municipalities, villages, and townships the ability to opt out. They gave that power to us. And it's an important factor, like it or not. You could say the people voted for personal use, commercializing marijuana in their community, but at the exact same time, they gave this power of opting out to the municipalities to do exactly what I believe we're doing tonight, which is have a town hall, listen to the opinion of the people, and then, as has already been said, make what is probably going to be a little bit of a difficult decision to balance personal use, safety, and commercializing marijuana in our community. And every community will be affected differently. So I think it was important that the proposal included this ability to have us assess what will happen in our backyard. I just hope everybody remembers one thing. We all live here too. So I hear a lot of you and they and us. We are all part of this community, not just sitting up here as officers, but our kids live here, our kids go to school here. We're as much integrated into this community as anyone. So just give us the benefit of the doubt on that one. So thank you.
Thank you. You know, I just wanna give an opportunity, the people that are standing outside, there's more room over here. Cause there's some people out there and I know they're trying to listen, so if you guys wanna let them in, you know, let them in, you guys can sit up along the stairs right here. And anyone in there, if you guys, I don't know, behind you, I mean, people need to squeeze in, you guys have a little room over here in the front. I want people to be able to listen. So if there's more people out there, you guys by all means come on in. All right, the next person is going to be Mohammed Mahmoud. Please kindly state your name, please.
Mohammed Mahmoud. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Can you lower the microphone?
Marijuana will affect and have an impact on the society, on the healthcare system, and most on the law enforcement.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
We will have concern about our city streets, especially when people are high and smoking. Smoking marijuana during adolescence age is a major concern. There's people who will become addicts in the future and can have health problems in the future, and everybody can see it. Who is going to decide the legal limit when a policeman stop a driver who is high and smoking? We will have people who will suffer financially and emotionally in the future. Whether you like it or not, it's gonna happen. Because of the people who will break the law. When we open our city for marijuana retail, we will run the risk of having future problems. How much is the cost of enforcing is correct. Correct, who will break the law. I'm here to say my summation, yes, we're gonna sell it, but we're gonna have problems like every other city in the United States. And people will suffer emotionally and financially, and everybody gonna see.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, can we have Maureen Stanton? Maureen here? And kindly state your name, please.
Maureen Stanton, thank you all for having this event so that we can all voice our opinions. Very much appreciate it. And thank you to all of my peers and neighbors who are here, who I may not agree with, but who I still value as neighbors. And so a couple things, I guess I still have some questions too, as Daryl did, which also just gives me the sense that we're kind of rushing into this because we have so many outstanding questions and that we won't actually have those answers for a year. And that I think it just is a really good opportunity to take some time, since the state will not be releasing the regulations for maybe a year, for us to really think about what this is gonna be in our community. And some of the issues that we're talking about here tonight, I think, are gonna happen regardless of whether this particular ordinance gets passed allowing or disallowing dispensaries and other facilities in our community, right? Like the police are gonna be stopping people who are gonna be under the influence, whether or not we have retail facilities in our community, because individuals have the right to smoke marijuana, and some of them will make poor decisions and get into the car, just like they do in alcohol. And some of them may just be stumbling, walking around their neighborhood, and some of them may be perfectly fine, and you would never even know that they're smoking marijuana. So I think, you know, the police force is gonna have a lot of issues and things to work through. One of my primary concerns, in addition to just feeling like this is a very rushed, knee-jerk reaction, is that foregoing any revenue to the city, I think, is a big deal. You know, we pay a ton of taxes, first of all. Second of all, we can use that money that we would have for, what is like $5,000 a year for licensing fees, which would go directly to the city, in addition to the 15%, I think, of the sales tax that the state would be distributing. 10. So that, you know, is it's not nothing, it may not be like a bajillion dollars, but it's not nothing. And so that money could be reinvested into the community, maybe even putting it into, programs like the state coalition that we have in Dearborn that's fighting drug addiction, to make sure that we're helping folks get off of opiates or heroin or other, intense drugs, knowing that people are gonna be smoking marijuana anyway. So, maybe there's a trade-off there, that we have these businesses and we're gonna be like responsible with those dollars. So I think there's a lot of options and opportunities for the city to look at. And I would hate to see us rush into something and put our foot down and not then have those conversations. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Zena Berry. State your name.
Zena Berry. I'm a pharmacist for the last 15 years, and I totally understand the importance of medical marijuana when we're dealing with medical conditions. But I also understand the dangers of the marijuana itself as a gateway drug, especially for our students. There was a study called Monitoring the Future study, which is done every year by University of Ann Arbor, that studies over 45,000 students in different schools, public and private. And they found that there were at least 22% of the 12th graders who are actually using marijuana as of today. And this number is expected to even increase more. My concern with that is what marijuana does on the brain of an adolescent and how it can definitely impact the motor functions, their coordination. So we're gonna have to think that if we allow this to happen, or at least rush into it, the consequences might be really, really dangerous for our youth. My concern is about the youth. I would definitely urge the council to kind of slow down and take a step back and look around us, maybe other cities that might decide not to opt out, and see, maybe assess after a while, what's the consequences of that option. I definitely urge though, for us to slow down and not to jump into something like that without, maybe giving some thought to what can happen in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
President, can I just make 2 quick points?
Sure.
Just to a few of the residents who have come up, I do want to assure everyone that regardless of any action that we take, whether it's opting in or opting out, we as a body will continue to do our homework and to study this issue over the course of the next year and I'm sure into the future. So I want to make that clear, even if we were to decide to opt out with a sunset clause of 12 months or 18 months, that doesn't mean that we'll just be sitting idly by, twiddling our thumbs throughout that period of time. And Daryl and Maureen, I know you both kind of asked a similar question that I don't think has been answered directly yet, which is, why do this now in advance of state regulations within the next year? And I do want to share, I know Councilman Gazzi shared some important information with us, that there are at least 1 or 2 major companies that are already established in a few states that have legalized, that are looking at buying up property, warehouses for growing, potential retail distribution spaces across the state, because they're looking to kind of capitalize on this now that it's been legalized here. And that's one thing that council has been discussing. If there are people looking to set up shop here and they buy a space now, and then, a year or so from now, we do decide to opt out, what does that mean? What does that look like? Does that cause confusion? Does that ruffle feathers? What does that mean for our community? So that is something that we're considering, as some of these larger entities are already looking at spaces across the state of Michigan. So I did just want to share that in answer to that question.
Very valid points. Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, next we have Kathleen Frazier.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Fraser. I had a question for you, Councilman Abraham. Did you say that you could not deal with the signage, like say no neon lights?
What I said was, we're not allowed to regulate content, words. I mean, to a certain, I'll let corporation counsel.
Yeah, because I was wondering about neon lights.
Yeah.
Specifically, the act, the new law says that the state law says that municipalities may establish reasonable restrictions on public signs related to marijuana establishments. However, the U.S. Supreme Court, a couple years ago, said that cities cannot regulate signs based on content. So how
Because in
this
Europe,
squares
they just
with
have
the
green
law.
squares and.
So I would assume that signs related to marijuana, we're going to follow the same sign regulations that we do for any other signage. And the council did spend a long period of time revising our ordinance to comply with what the US Supreme Court said and make it content.
So neon lights would be allowed?
Well, that's already in the ordinance, it's already regulated, the lighting and types of signs, so it wouldn't be any different.
And, Councilman Bazey, did you say that you can't say where you want them or how many?
I didn't know, you can define how many in totality, much like we did with hookah lounges. But what you cannot do is say, if I decide to zone multiple quadrants, if you ever look at a zoning map of the city, there's multiple quadrants where there's RA, BB, IC, all those quadrants. So if the determination is that grow shops are allowed in industrial C only, let's say. So anywhere there's industrial C, and then it can be so many feet from a school, from a church, from maybe a neighborhood, anything then that is an IC that is meeting those requirements in every quadrant of the city is then available to go seek a licensing for. So if we say that we're gonna allow 5, and someone comes forward, whoever down here, I know this will also be walking forward, and said, I wanna build one of these, I want one of these, I bought a warehouse and I bought it over in Buffalo. And that's, in this area's IC, there'd be no way for the council to say, you can't put it there. If all the other requirements are met, we don't have 5 already, all right, and he meets every other requirement that's set in the zoning law, that's where it goes. And the same thing on dispensaries, whether we say we're only gonna have 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever, or 2, whoever comes first with the opportunities of those buildings that meets the requirements are the guys that end up getting in.
All right, and my last question really was, can those jobs go to Dearborn residents instead of outside entities?
We can't do that, no, you can't do that, you can't discriminate. All
Okay,
right,
that's it.
thank you.
Yeah, they won't be seeking tax abatements, I don't believe.
All right, next we're going to have, Mr. Michael, is it Krug? Krug? Yeah, come on forward, please. Just state your name.
Hello, my name is Michael Krug. I would just like to point out that both right now, Detroit, Inkster, and Garden City all allow medical marijuana sales. So, and I would be surprised if they did not opt into the recreational sale as well. So we'd be essentially surrounded on all sides with no real say as to what was going on. Like other people have pointed out, we'd also be opting out of bank revenue. And if you look at research done between, like, let's say a dry county for alcohol, they actually seem to have more occurrences of DUI and situations like that when people have to travel out of the county, out of the town to go get alcohol and then get drunk and drive back in. So as far as like, just to, as well. Thank you again for letting us talk.
Thank you, sir. Just to remind people, if you guys want to sit up over here, please, the ones that are standing outside, let them come in. And anyone that's standing out there, you guys join us, please. We want you guys to have an opportunity to at least listen to what's going on. Thank you. And there's room here in the middle for whoever wants to stand in the middle. All right, next we have Ibrahim Shuba. Is there Ibrahim? Oh.
Yep. Any podium's fine.
State your name again, please.
My name is Ibrahim Shuba, and I'm just, I have a few questions regarding, you know, there's bordering cities like Detroit, especially along Fairmont, there's dispensaries. What's the difference if they're there or on the Dearborn side? You know, Dearborn residents can still buy things there. I know we can't do anything about that, but what is it like?
Can you speak into the mic?
Why does it matter like where they're located? They're still available to residents. Why don't we, let's look at the facts, we opt in how much revenue will be from it. And also, there's large scale buildings in Dearborn that are unoccupied. And if we opt in, people will occupy them, bring jobs, that'll be better for the real estate market. So maybe we gotta look at the benefits of opting in, or we all together opt out. Another thing that I was, and then if we have the retail locations in Dearborn, we can pass better laws and enforce that children don't go in there, people that are underage. So I think that there's a benefit from having it in our own city, because it's gonna be in the surrounding cities anyway, just like a couple of people reiterated. So that's all.
Oh, thank you, sir. All right, next we have Paul Safaya.
Greetings, everyone. I
State
came.
your name, please.
Oh, Paul Safaya. I'm probably coming up with something a little bit different than what we've heard before, because all the arguments, if you've been doing your homework, have been expressed. For, against, we need the money, it's a moral issue, whatever. My question is, or my suggestion is to the council, getting to the practical aspect of all this and some of the issues that Chief mentioned. Perhaps we should get a study group, or the council can speak with people in Seattle and Colorado and things like that, because with the launch of any product, you open up a dispensary, there's going to be people lined up out the door for this, maybe around the block. But what's gonna happen in a few months? Will that die down? Will it pick up? What's gonna happen? So you can get ideas on traffic patterns from looking at their experience. You can get ideas of how to set up the shops, how to regulate the hours in the neighborhoods. How do they do that? You know, people aren't falling over in the street, but by the same token, there's a lot of moral anxiety about this. So that's what I would suggest. Secondly, as far as the signage, take this for what it's worth, but I think it's gold. The Supreme Court ruled on the signage for legal opportunities, businesses. According to the US, this is still illegal. So we have it legal here, it's illegal everywhere else. So we may be able to work out something with signage too, because you don't want flashing lights saying, come here, get your reefer, it's 10% stronger. You know, things like that. So you want it to be rational. So again, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes, but I think the issue is really to make sure you do it right, make sure the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, you understand what the practical implications are, and move according to experience. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, and next can we have Arnold Cadia?
Thank you, Council, for posting this. My name is Arnold Cadu. So first I want to go through a couple of points I have. So first of all, it seems like the point of this is for a lot of justification from your aspect to justify the ordinance. And so I want to tackle that head on. First of all, I don't see anyone on this council talking about banning alcohol. Stop shutting down alcohol stores. When you go into a liquor store, there's signs this big advertising a case of beer for $7, right? That is far more available to minors and anything else than marijuana will ever be. So first of all, I hate that comparison, because we have plenty of studies that alcohol is far more detrimental to a youth's growth. We have a lot of studies saying that it's far more available to the youth than marijuana will ever be, so I don't see that argument being valid. Number two, LARA, the state's regulatory body, is responsible for regulating marijuana. In a year, they will come out with regulations probably very similar to Colorado's, and they will be the ones regulating how this will come about in terms of how people can actually buy it, the process by which they have to go to buy it. So that will be handled for this body. Number three, and this is the big one, is the first mover problem. If you say we're not gonna allow any stores to open up in Dearborn for 18 months, that means you'll open up all around Dearborn. And what that will mean is that businesses will not wanna start building businesses after they've already had the opportunity to build them. The biggest movement for these marijuana stores is in the first 6 months. Once that buzz and that pressure is there, that's where they're gonna make most of their money. So if we go past on that, those storefronts will not fill up with marijuana shops afterwards. We'll leave them empty. Coupled with that, if we're leaving storefronts empty and we're passing up on tax revenue, that means effectively we're gonna have a higher tax rate than the rest of the communities around us, because they will be subsidized by the marijuana purchases, whereas we'll have to pay the full rate for some moral equivalency that I can't seem to understand. So next time, if this ordinance stands up, the next time I come around to vote and I see empty storefronts and I see my high taxes, I will think of this. This is a clear indication of the fact that we are passing up on tax revenue, we are passing up on businesses, and the rest of the communities will come around and pass ahead of us. Thank you.
Very politely ask that we refrain from clapping or applauding or saying anything when somebody speaks or when they end, because then it starts to create some sort of this group versus this group. I don't want to do that. I really want to have dialogue, and I want everyone to feel comfortable to have dialogue. So I kindly ask you guys, please refrain from applauding, refrain from speaking when somebody's speaking or saying anything. I'm going to strictly adhere to that. All right. Next, we're going to speak to, Andrew is the last name on Beechmont?
Betsy.
Betsy.
Thanks for having us.
Can you say your name, please?
Betsy Andreu. We have a Fortune 500 company. We are rebuilding the downtown. We are known as a city, which is a good city to raise families in. Do we really want to attract what pot brings? Or do we want to leave that to other cities? I think it's understated the detrimental effect that marijuana has on an undeveloped brain. The brain doesn't develop until you're 27 years old. People who smoke pot are more likely to commit suicide than those who don't, more likely to have relationship conflicts, more likely to have mental illness and be depressed. This is all in the Lancet. It's a fact. You can look it up in the Lancet, which is a respected medical journal. All I hear is money, 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 the revenue that it's going to bring. It's a joke how little marijuana is going to be taxed. If you really want to bring in money, then why don't you legalize prostitution? That's going to bring in a heck of a lot more money than marijuana would. The city's going to go to pot if you guys allow dispensaries. It's going to go to pot. And it's not going to be a city that's going to be welcome to families. Crime is going to increase. Thank you.
Please. Again, let's just refrain from the applauding. I'm not against applauding, but we're trying to maintain a setting where everyone feels comfortable to speak. All right, next individual is James Twazinski, or is this good? Okay, I apologize. You're gonna have to state your name, and you know what? You're gonna have to state your address because you didn't write your address on here.
Academy Street. James Twazinski.
Are you a Dearborn resident?
I am a Dearborn resident.
Okay.
So
What street did you say? I'm sorry.
Academy.
Okay.
So I'm a block south of Nowlin. Has anybody lived or been near a house that grows? Because as Chief has stated, there's two main ways to know that somebody grows: traffic and the smell. And without a dispensary in the city of Dearborn, you're gonna promote people I know to start growing, which is gonna be, it's legal now to grow in their basement. It stinks, and I don't wanna live next to that. I don't wanna do it, I don't wanna live next to that. So I would, excuse me, I would propose having a distribution house so we don't have more growers than we, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. All right, can we have Mark Slinsky? On Lawrence Street? State your name, please.
My name is Mark Zalewski.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Got a few points to make. As far as I know, police enforcement should not change. There's still gonna be laws against selling it to somebody under 21. The rules on driving are still going to be, should be enforced, and parking is already enforced in the city, so I don't see any problems with that. The other people have said income is not shared if we do opt out. Schools and churches should not be affected because there should be ordinances, and I believe there are going to be ordinances against churches and schools being in an area where there's going to be any selling or growing. Like it or not, Dearborn residents are users of marijuana. There's no need to make it inconvenient to shop for a legal product as alcohol. The police department, I believe, could probably make arrangements for security. That's one thing that we really should be concerned about is security, since it is a cash business. Other people have said it promotes opioid problems. Well, people's medicine cabinets promote opioid problems. And nobody's died from marijuana as opposed to opioid. And I'm sure establishments will be vetted and the owners will be vetted like medical marijuana and like liquor establishments. And my question is, doesn't the council have an option to limit the establishments without opting out and not having establishments just willy-nilly take over the city? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we're going to have Matthew Sugar. State your name.
Hey, Zoom, thank you. Matthew Sugar, Dearborn resident, and hearing everybody's problems, we constantly hear youth, and one I heard from someone saying how we're gonna regulate, or how are we gonna understand or have know how the youth is getting access to this, access to marijuana. Well, and the states have already accessed and legalized marijuana for recreational use. They do something called a seed to sale. That's the only way someone can distribute and process marijuana is by a barcode where it tracks from seed to sale. And that's one thing. And another thing is, like someone mentioned before, alcohol. I was a youth one time, and my dad told me from when I was younger that alcohol was wrong. So I never questioned his judgment, and I just went about my life knowing that alcohol was wrong. So then growing up, you see bar after bar after liquor store, knowing like at any point in time that I can, after 21, enter that bar or that liquor store and buy liquor for myself. Morally knowing it was wrong, I didn't do so. So as for people who question, the problems of the youth, it starts at home. If you guys have if people have a problem with, their youth, they don't want their youth access or have access to marijuana or something that should be taken home and educated at home or through, the DARE program growing up. We should take this opportunity to find new ways to educate the youth, because I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but people use marijuana. If they're going to use it, whether it's legal, whether it's illegal, whether it's legal for recreational use, whether we have dispensaries on Ford Road, people distribute it and whatnot. But if we can limit the people who distribute it and have them under umbrella and know that these are the only places that distribute it throughout the city, then I think that will be a better problem. As far as this is an opportunity for us to grow as a city and be more transparent between the councilmen and ladies and the population. Thank you.
Good catch them. Yeah. All right, next we will have Musa Saeed. Is he still here? Mr. Saeed? All right. All right, next we have Alex S. From Fairwood.
My name is Alex. I am a Dearborn Heights resident. Nice to talk.
You can speak. We're gonna be very quick, please.
3 minutes. Anyway, I'm here to represent myself and also represent many families that go to Boy Scouts here in the city of Dearborn, that they are against this. And I know this is gonna happen. I mean, I don't think we're gonna opt out. I think this is gonna happen because we always think about money, about taxes, which is fine. But I'd like to also, I respect all of you guys, and at the same time, I would like to ask everyone, on you guys and in the audience, to go back to our core values. We were created to be fathers and husbands and wives and brothers and uncles and so forth. And we already have enough hookah bars in Dearborn. We already have enough liquor stores. And I remember many years back, these things used to happen at the outskirts of the cities, not inside the cities. So if this is gonna happen, I would like to ask you guys to at least, let it happen in the outskirts of the cities. Because these things are gonna affect the marriage life, it's gonna affect fatherhood, it's gonna affect families, it's gonna affect many things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, can we have Christina Scarpella? Apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name.
That's okay.
You could just state it, please.
My name is Christina Sharpella, and I am a Dearborn resident. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd like to first of all say that although this marijuana proposal has passed, it is still federally illegal, and I would ask the council members to explore the illegalness of this in relationship to the sale. Second of all, this proposal, although it's been said it passed by just a few votes, but it passed because millions of dollars came into the state from outside the state to get it passed, both in getting signatures and in the advertisement. I am disappointed in that I had received information that the council was going to have professionals make presentations, such as the police chief, but also medical, those people that have knowledge of the impact of this on our community. That has not happened. So I would urge you to do something like that. I was very disappointed in Police Chief Haddad's comments, in that basically the thrust was, well, we're gonna need more money. I had expected him to talk about the impact on the city and its residents of this proposal and having medical, marijuana facilities. I live right off Ford Road. They are already in Dearborn Heights getting together to do a lease. There is someone who is going to be leasing. Dearborn Heights has not had their vote yet, but I live on the cusp of that. I've heard a lot of talk here about profit motive, and I'm very disappointed. Dearborn has been known as a family city. Let's take the high road on this. Let's opt out and evaluate. And I would urge you to look at cities in Colorado and other states where marijuana use is producing all kinds of problems. I think we need to really look at this. We are a family city. Let's take the high road on this. And that's about it. I don't think it's a matter of profit, and I don't think it's a matter of resources. I think it's a matter of values. And we have to show our surrounding community what kind of values we have. It's a hop, skip, and a jump to go to Inkster, to go to Westland, to go to Detroit, to buy your marijuana. Why does it have to be here? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Just to address something that you brought up, we did invite, we weren't going to be inviting people to talk about the negative effects of marijuana, because I don't think that was the purpose of this town hall. The purpose was really to consider whether or not to opt out and to have the stakeholders that are involved kind of speak their piece and say what they feel we should do as a body. And that does not just include our corporation council, our chief of police, the public, but we did invite other entities within the city of Dearborn. I'm not, I guess I'm going to choose not to name who they are, but there are other public entities or other nonprofits and other organizations within our city, and they've chosen not to take a stance on it right now because in some of the response that I've gone back, I feel it's a little premature at this point to make a statement. So we were hoping we would get more dialogue from others, but many felt that it was still too soon. And Councilwoman Herrick?
I wanted to reiterate, one of the reasons we were looking at a sunset clause that goes beyond a year, because we won't know, as was pointed out earlier, what the state regulations are going to be for a year. But the reason we were looking at making it clear for this time period that we may or may not opt out going forward, as was stated earlier, to let possible business owners know, don't be buying a property, because we might not be allowing that going forward. But also to give us the time, as was suggested, to study how other cities across our state and look more into how other states have implemented and regulated and the repercussions of legalizing marijuana use in different cities. One of the other things that we're doing is tomorrow, for example, Thursday, the Michigan Municipal League, the entity that provides information to help us do our jobs better, is holding a seminar, and I'm going to be attending, and I believe Aaron Burns is going to be attending this Thursday. So we are going to be doing our due diligence and learning about the kinds of things that you were just asking about, you know, the medical impact on young brains, for example, as well as the possible costs, dangers, effect on neighborhoods, that kind of thing. So we are going to be continuing to do our homework beyond this evening, but as Council President Debacha said, we really wanted to give business owners who live and work in the city, and residents in particular, an opportunity to voice your concerns, your thoughts, your opinions about this tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bazey.
In defense of the council president, and really she's a good speaker for herself, but I will tell you that there were multiple individuals that are key stakeholders in various positions across the city that were invited to come here and speak, and for a variety of different reasons chose that this was not either the appropriate time or that they didn't want to get involved in something that is as politically fun as this is to do. Our role is one of, we don't get to run. We ran for election, whether we like it or not. We get to make tough decisions. I've been here to propose a lot of things, pools, and a variety of other libraries, and none of them are fun. I wish half these people would have showed up for the sign ordinance discussions. So, because I get a lot of emails about the sign ordinance, so it would have been nice to have a lot more input during that time frame. What I'm not gonna do up here is espouse any of my own opinions. If you wanna hear those, you'll hear those on the 18th. If we do take up this vote on the 18th. And at that point, you're all welcome back to hear why we do what we do and when we do it. And I hope you all come back. But I do want to defend the council president, because she spent a lot of time and effort making sure that the key stakeholders had an opportunity to come here tonight.
Appreciate that, Councilman. Thank you. I just want to point out that there is an empty seat here and an empty seat there if anyone wants to sit. Next, we're going to have Huda Farhad. Kindly state your name, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Huda Farhad, and thank you for allowing me to speak here. I just want to really remind, or point out rather, the situation that the state of Colorado is going through. According to an article, so it's not coming from me, by the USA Today, published about 5 weeks ago, it talked about the rapid increase of the car accidents. These dispensaries have been built in the vulnerable, in the very like low end of the city or state rather, meaning people of color, minorities, poor. We are seeing more suicidal cases, and most importantly, people kept talking about the leverage, the financial leverage that this is going to bring to the state of Colorado. And if you allow me just to say that the state of Colorado budget is about $13 billion, that's the annual budget, and then only out of the $13 billion, $150 million is coming from the marijuana or legalizing marijuana. So it's not even 2% of the entire budget percentage. So overall, as a Dearborn resident myself, as an educator, as an advocate, I'm against it solely because it's against our values. It's going to disrupt our society and our community, our youth. And yes, we cannot take it out. Let's face this reality. If this is bad or not, we cannot take it out of our life. It's there some way, somehow. But it's better to be there that it's being sponsored by our officials and leaders so that people look up to as models and that people look up to as public servants. So that's my take on it. I'm against it because it's against our values and it's gonna make our state and our city condition worse, and it's not gonna bring any benefits, especially when it comes to the financial. Rather, it's gonna bring a lot of disruption, a lot of car accident, a lot of chaos for families, and it's gonna be a big problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next, we're going to have, Fred Cascorges. You know.
Yes, gorgeous. You're getting your first time, right?
I'm doing a little bit.
My name is Fred Cascorges. Actually not a Dearborn resident, but business owner here for 42 years. I'm looking at it from a business point of view. I think this will create a lot of revenue for the city. And we should not let this business go out to surrounding city around us, because you are not gonna stop people from smoking at all, no matter what you do. I sell alcohol, it's a choice. You can drink or not drink, nobody forces you. Same as smoking. I don't recommend my kids to smoke, I don't smoke. But it's a choice people make. That's all I have to say. We should not misunderstand this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we're gonna have Colin McDougall.
Colin McDougall, thank you, City Council and Honorable Body. I would like to talk about that some of the people who did say they were in favor of opting in. I wanted to talk about the plant itself.
Can you speak to the microphone?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the plant itself and how it takes like a really long time and it's really complicated in how to grow it. And so I don't see like too many people actually taking it up, but people who do need it would probably benefit from a place where they have accessibility to it, and they don't always have medical cards and are afraid of, for whatever reason, getting one. I think that there's also different parts of the language and that you can write to accommodate smaller businesses. There are different types of grows within the language that talk about smaller grows, because when originally we were trying to write it to get caregivers who have these 72 plant grows in their basements to like move to another smaller commercially licensed facility to like get them off of that gray black market area. I think that it's really good that you guys are having these this town hall here tonight. I'd like to be part of whatever board or whatever Ken was talking about. I do have access to help you understand different facilities throughout the state and different cities and municipalities that have already medical marijuana ordinances on the book, and I'm sure that some of them will soon be recreational marijuana ordinances. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next we have Ahmed Bazzi.
My name is Ahmed Bazzi. I'm a Dearborn resident, and I speak also as a school educator, public school educator, and also a member of a local Boy Scouts group. So I want to touch up on two main points for today. First one is I understand that the legality of marijuana is in control of the federal government and the decision has been made. However, we have a certain level of control within the city, whether we want to bring it in or not. The reason why I stand against this is one, for normalization of marijuana. As a school educator, I see students, how vulnerable they are and how much hype this marijuana drug has around younger teenagers. And I believe having a dispensary in the city will let them know that there are members in this community who don't take such a strong stance against this, similar to what community member Ken said. The second point is I just want to share some statistics with the group tonight. The statistics for youth who are underage who smoke cigarettes, according to the Department of Human and Health Services, it says that nearly 90% of adult smokers began smoking before the age of 18, and 9.7% of high school seniors reported smoking in the last month. Use of, that's for cigarettes. For underage drinking, according to the cdc.gov government website, excessive drinking is responsible for more than 4,300 deaths among underage youth each year and costs the United States $24 billion in economic costs. Although drinking by persons under age of 21 is illegal, people aged 12 to 20 drink about 11% of all alcohol consumed in the United States. Teens drink and drive approximately 2.4 million times a month across the US. 1 in 5 teen drivers involved in fatal crashes have alcohol in their system. 85% of high schoolers who drink say they binge drink. And in the past 30 days, 22% of high schoolers rode with a driver who had been drinking. The reason why I mention these statistics is what makes us think that just because there are some regulations on the dispensaries, that it will not fall into the hands of the youth in our community. And I prioritize, as an educator and as a member of this community, I prioritize the quality of our youth versus the quantity of the profits and revenue that we bring into the city. I don't mind living in a city that has less of a revenue, but a higher quality youth population, whether academics, psychologically, or in any other facet of their life.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next we have Jacob Lambert.
Hi, my name is Jacob Lambert. I'm a Dearborn resident. So I'm just here to represent those who recognize the clear economic opportunity at hand. It would be entirely irrational to restrict marijuana-related businesses from entering city limits. It wouldn't restrict residents from obtaining, consuming, or growing marijuana for personal use, as it would simply be purchased outside of city limits or grown for personal use. So why would we not take advantage of this vital economic opportunity for our city? Not only would it provide a drastic increase in economic development for Dearborn, but it would also have the potential to yield significant benefits in the form of tax dollars. Several cities throughout the country have already benefited immensely by allowing marijuana-related businesses to operate within city limits. Take an example, Pueblo, Colorado. Prior to the legalization of marijuana, Pueblo was a struggling economy that drastically affected residents financially. Though upon the legalization, a total of $58 million in revenue with a $35 million profit was generated for the city over the span of 2012 to 2016. Further research from New Frontier data suggests that the cannabis industry could produce approximately 1 million jobs by 2025 throughout the country. Furthermore, our city would be entitled to tax dollars generated from cannabis businesses operating within the state, which could be allocated to the school system within our city, police department, fire department, etc. So I believe that it is vital for our city to take advantage of the opportunity presented to us through the legalization of marijuana, as I believe it would put us at the forefront of economic leaders in Wayne County and Michigan.
All right, next is James Burns. Is he still here?
My name is James Burns, a Dearborn resident. I can hardly improve upon the delivery that Ahmed just made to you, but I'm certainly in accord with it. A couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, there was a comparison between marijuana, say, and its deleterious effects, and alcohol. Alcohol has a tendency to dissipate within 24 hours. Natural body functions. Marijuana does not. There's a viscous substance in marijuana that adheres to the neurotransmitters in the brain. And the National Institute of Health has done a lot of work on this. and it's not positive. Secondly, I would like to say that there's a matter of blood flow to the brain, and marijuana significantly decreases that. You can draw your own conclusions on what that means for young people in education, but it certainly is a factor in the onset of Alzheimer's, the decreased blood flow to the brain. I'd like you to weigh these two factors against the perhaps nebulous idea of tax revenue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do want to say before we move on, I want to thank everyone that's attending here tonight. Not only for attending, but really, you guys have been a very, very respectful audience. And, I've had moments when I've been up here where I haven't been able to say that 100%. So I just want to say thank you guys. It's really been an honor to have this town hall. I think you guys have been very respectful to everyone and everyone's opinion, especially about an issue that's passionate. Next, we're gonna have, Fake Nasser? Yeah, come on forward.
My name is Faik Nasser. I'm not living in Dearborn now. I've been living for a long time. My daughter lives here. My father-in-law lives here. I'm 20 members related to me in Dearborn. I'm a scientist. I have done research on marijuana at Wayne State University, pharmaceutical science. And I'm very sorry to hear that some people focus on the money side of it. I know this task is very, very difficult on you, the council. But I can tell you how horrible the experiment I've done. Of course, I've done experiment on mice. How the mice will lose their memory significantly, and you can extrapolate for Alzheimer's. I'm sorry, I have to mention some little bit technical words. I don't know what other word I have to say. You can look it up. It's called anandamide. Anandamide is the receptor in human body, which is in the brain also. Anandamide, the word from anan means happiness. And we are chemists. We had, sometimes we borrow the names. Marijuana has the active ingredient, everybody knows about it, THC, delta-9 THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol. And marijuana, day and night difference from alcohol in terms of the detrimental effect. It is a horrible, it's a Trojan horse. Marijuana is a Trojan horse. It's a gateway for drugs. I can guarantee you, if I have time in the future, I can give you a lecture with slide, pictures, and how to see how this is horrible. And I know it's a very difficult task because, democracy, voting, money, company, benefit, it's terrible. It's very difficult on you and everybody else. But I am as a scientist, as a father and a grandfather now, it is really the most devastating. The drugs is sneaky. And people, what they say, they stone and they take a cigarette. I spoke to people also, I've interviewed people, hundreds of young people. I asked even ladies and girls and students. They told me, I would rather, this is the woman, the girls, the teenager, the college student. I told her, why you smoke marijuana? She said, well, I can take a joint and better than take 6-pack of beer. That is from the mouth of the people who smoke marijuana. It's attack the brain in a very gentle way. It's a long-term effect. Of course, a lot of people can say, oh, I've been smoking all the time, I didn't have any problem.
Thank you, Mr. Nasser.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Abdullah Sheikh. State your name.
My name is Abdullah Sheikh, and I just want to shed some light on my experience. When we went to vote for legalizing marijuana, it was on the ballot. I did some study, and I went to some states that they already legalized marijuana, like Colorado, and I find someone very interesting. He told me, and he was so advocate and active with this issue, and he was able to make 3 states not to legalize marijuana. And he was here trying, but at the last minute, was not able to pull it here. But this guy, he said, number 1 is in Colorado, every 2.5 days, we have 1 person die from driving under the influence of marijuana, PUM. Every 2.5 days, 12 guys die every month, 144 people a year. 1 is too much, isn't it? Number 2, he told me that he was walking with his daughter and wife. He has a new kid, and he take her around, and the smell of the skunk smell of marijuana everywhere. They end up packing and leaving. They were left to Virginia, and then from then he made a group and started lobbying against it. The third, he told me, and what I'm interested is data, because I want to get to my community and I want to lobby, with or against. So he told me the third one is the business greed. They don't stop just selling the marijuana. They put it in the cookies, they put it in the candies, they want to put it in the drink. So the business greed doesn't stop. You want to maximize because they paid so much money, to politicians and so on to make this happen. So they want to get that money back and a lot more. So they put it everywhere. So where do we go? So with this said, I just wanted to share with you that, Dearborn is the 2nd largest city in Wayne County and is the 7th biggest city in Michigan. And everybody look at Dearborn as an example. When people go, like Michelle Obama said, when people go low, you should go high. And every city is looking at us, what we're gonna do and how we're gonna handle the situations. So as the sister said, let's go high. Let's leave this subject and go high and see what we can do with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Ahmad Hamad. Please take your seat.
Ahmad Hamad. I am a long-time resident of Dearborn. I have my kids, my family, everybody. And I think I don't want to be repetitive of what so many people stressed on, is that what makes Dearborn unique and different, what makes Dearborn a model, a national model. I think when we talk about safety, public safety, I think Dearborn emerged as a national model through the great work of the Dearborn Police Department. And we were able to make the city a national model that attracted the admiration and the respect of so many to follow our track here. I think we have an opportunity here to do the same model, despite the fine lines and despite the difficulty that we are dealing with. I think we have to keep in mind one thing that was already mentioned, is how the police department are going to deal with the complications of such impact. I have a teenager and I had personal experience, and I can attest to the severe negative impact of dealing with marijuana. Now, the federal law still considers this illegal, and that's a big question. How the federal authorities will deal with it, how they will address it, and that's something we need to keep in mind. I urge you to more thorough review, study, statistics, and then proceed from there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is Musa Saeed. Step to the back, we'll go to the back. Steve Arnold. Arnold. Oh.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. Great turnout tonight. I've been before this council before talking about mainly the availability of drugs to our youth. Where we had gas stations selling synthetic marijuana and paraphernalia that was available to kids. At the end of the day, it's all about youth. We can do very little about what adults choose, but we can try to control access and protect our children, okay? I think this is an opportunity. Right now, marijuana was sold in Dearborn today. It was bought in Dearborn today. It'll be bought in Dearborn tomorrow. It'll be sold in Dearborn tomorrow. It's a fact, okay? Control what we can. We don't know who's selling it. We don't know what's in it. There's tremendous differences in the amount of THC, the quality, and the additives, okay? Let's control what we can. Let's corral it, the amount we can. It's not about revenue. Forget about revenue. Our children are more important than revenue. It's not revenue. Let's control it. Let's take control of our own destiny. Let's grab this. Let's set a good an example. We're not gonna eliminate it, but let's try. The biggest problem, the state legislation hasn't done anything what this council's gonna do to protect our children. We still have a lot of work to do on that. And it's the same with alcohol. We see we failed miserably in alcohol. We need to do a better job with this, because this is dangerous for young people. Okay, so let's take this opportunity. Let's not punt. This is a chance to grab hold of this, take control of our own destiny. Let's do the right thing. It's not perfect. People aren't perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we have Ali Al-Maklani. State your name.
Good evening, my name is Ali Al-Maklani. Thank you for having this town hall meeting and listen to the people. I was working with Ford Motor Company for 36 years. I seen friends using the marijuana and I asked them, what is the benefit of it? They said, well, it makes me happy and I feel like I'm flying. We already have enough problem in Dearborn with the drug. We're trying to stop that, whether it's they use it in Dearborn or coming from the neighborhood. Now we have the hot issues. It is hot. You've seen the people, they coming over here because it's hot. Each one have his thought, his different idea. Like the former speaker said, our worry is our children, our grandchildren. It will affect the school, it will affect the neighborhood, it will create some crime because the children may try to get money from whatever it takes, even from their parents, to buy this kind of marijuana. Some people already drive, have sleepy. If they use that, they will completely sleepy. And there is a people who, will create so many accidents. So we will lose in our children, we will increase the accident, and I think the city, our city, I am in the Dearborn the Healthy Dearborn organization, which is led by Dearborn City, Beaumont, and school. And our mission and vision and goal is to keep Dearborn healthy, to keep the resident healthy. In order to be healthy, be clean, be out of the crowd. So the marijuana is very dangerous, and we don't have the right to stop everything, but at least think twice, 3, 4 times, listen to the people, see what happened in the other city that they legalize the license, whatever it takes. I hope you will listen to our comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. All right, next I'm going to call on Jihad Talib. Please state your name.
Well, my name is Jihad Talib. Thank you guys for having us up here. I'm a Dearborn resident. I consider myself fairly active in the city
Besides, because of my field in the law and an MPA program, I feel like this is a learning experience for me. So I have two concerns. I'll make them short. First of all, considering the cost and benefit, and I appreciate Councilman Kirk, and then the intensive work, original work, learning that you did, and personally you're gonna attend meetings. Have you considered an evaluation, the cost and benefit? The burden will be on law enforcement from investigation. Sure, we know the complications of search and seizures law, and then when it comes to this detail, especially that the proposal one allows people to have to appoint 2.5 months, I believe, on them. So with that, I believe would consider it as a problem for law enforcement, particularly in the search and seizure. Another point I want to mention right quick for those who are for marijuana use, recreational marijuana use, I still want to bring to your attention, and I'm sure you already know, that besides it's illegal federal, which might limit your opportunities to go on a government job or any position that you might hope one day to get it. The other aspect that I encourage you to look at, that is still up to employers, private or public employers, to ban any, to check first of all for drug use or ban any employees or future employees from using any drugs. Thank you. Thank you for that.
All right, Mr. Musa Said. We called your name and you weren't here.
Actually, sorry. I had a comment, but not to speak.
Okay, so you just wanted us to,
Yeah.
that for us? We got it. Thank you, Mr. Said. Next, and I'll share, these will be shared with the rest of our council. Next we have Mr. Craig Messasesi. I apologize. Is Craig here? Okay, apologize. All right, next we have, and I just want to tell everyone, if anyone else wants to speak, especially those that haven't spoken already, please turn in these sheets. We're trying to get everyone home at a reasonable hour. I have a few more to go through. If you haven't spoken, please submit something. If you've already spoken, I'm only going to limit it to people to speak one time, only because of the interest of time. So if you want to turn that in the next 5 minutes, please do so, because I'm trying to get through this stack. We really would like to give an opportunity to everyone to speak that wish to speak tonight. Next, can I have Mr. Abbas Musa? Mr. Abbas Musa here? Please step forward, state your name.
Abbas Musa, 6532 Miller Road, resident of Dearborn since 1991. I was a kid, and I have kids now. The one point that I wanted to make is about the revenue. The difference is, or the choice you have, what if we let this happen, and what if we opted out? So if we opted out, we are gonna lose some money, some revenue. Okay, the suggestion is, why don't you study or calculate how much money you are gonna lose if you opted out, and then add it to our taxes. We've been paying taxes for 30 years. We've been generous, and we never refused to pay any extra taxes to keep our city floating and in good condition. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we have Ahmed Lababidi. Apologize. Please state your name.
Lababidi. What I'm about to say is nothing different than what most people have been saying. It goes in the line that it takes a village to raise a child. I myself been here a child when I was younger. Now I have my own kids, and I chose and I invested in the city of Dearborn. I bought a house. I would like to stay here for a bit of time. I would like to have my kids to grow in here in the same manner that I had the opportunity to do so. I just like to encourage you and urge you to put our kids ahead of the money and not focus on the money in this regard. And almost every police car on the back, on the bumper, they have a sticker that says, "Keep Dearborn clean, please keep them clean." Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next, we have Ramsey Macklin. And Mr. Macklin, if you could state your address, because we don't have that information on here.
42 Canterbury, Dearborn?
42 Canterbury?
Yes. And I'll keep it brief because a lot of the points I was going to make are already covered.
Sure, can you pull the microphone closer to you, please?
Yeah. Actually, I was very heartened to hear your thoughtful comments that were made here against having the stores. And before I kind of recap what was said, I'm not going to go in detail. I think it's really incumbent on this council, and thank you, by the way, for having this forum, to commission studies to look at the negative impacts. In Colorado, someone mentioned 150 out of 13 billion. It's actually 250, but just about everything else I heard is very factual. One death, and he mentioned a death in Colorado, isn't worth whatever they made, whether it was 250 or 150. And I think this commission should, or this council should commission professionals, doctors, law enforcement, psychologists, whoever they think, to look at the negative impacts of what marijuana in general will do. I think it's a false assumption to think that most residents, even though it passed in Michigan, were for marijuana. Unfortunately, most residents don't vote. We already know that. And the woman there mentioned that there was substantial money put from out of state to get this thing passed by a small margin. So I'm gonna assume that most people don't want marijuana in Michigan, let alone Dearborn. So again, I think the council should consider delaying any action on this until they can commission people to do formal studies. And some of the things were mentioned was the image of Dearborn. I'm not gonna repeat that. The health issues, the crime. Just look at Detroit now, you know, when they came in with the casino. You got a cottage industry now in Gamblers Anonymous, and people that spend their savings that they should be spending for their families on gambling. Okay, it's not just hurting the gambler, it's hurting the families. So I think there are many negative things that you can say about anything that perhaps, you know, would affect families, and I think marijuana certainly would. And I'm gonna conclude. I'm not gonna go over everything here, but a lot of the politicians that are in Congress right now grew up in the 60s, okay? And a lot of them smoked, but they didn't inhale, as they said. But look at the condition. Look at the condition that Congress is in now, and the intransigence we have there. But you want to see what might happen if you smoke marijuana. That's all I got to say.
A few more, we're wrapping them up. We're not gonna take any more of these, but you guys are free to submit them. I'm gonna name, these people are gonna have an opportunity to speak, but if anyone, if anybody wants to submit a comment for us to consider, please do so. I do wanna say that the council is taking everyone's comments very seriously. I mean, this is a conversation that council members have had between each other, you know, you've had back and forth. Not the inhale part, yep. And so we're taking it very seriously. This is one of those topics that I think can't be decided overnight. It should not be decided overnight, and everyone up here recognizes that. Can I have Mr. Ahmed Farajli please come on up? Please state your name.
Hello, Council. I'm Ahmed Farajli. Though some here may be against marijuana, it is already legal, nothing we can do about it. So although some may roll their eyes when we bring up the issue of revenue, the truth is, this debate is about the money. It is not immoral to think about this only for the money. It is logical. It is only logical. And as someone has already mentioned, we would lose on business opportunities from outside the city if we opt out for a period of time. Marijuana is already legal in Michigan. We can't do anything about it, but what we can do is capitalize on it. So even if you think it does have negative health effects, those debates are irrelevant. Remember, prohibition does not work. If people want something, they will do it. If your kids want marijuana, I'm sorry, but they will use marijuana if they want. You can't stop them, but what you can do is help our city. These revenues can go back into funding our city. They can go into anti-drug program, which some of you are clearly passionate about. It can go into education, which is actually helping the students, etc. So I remind you, let's be logical about this. Even though you may preach family values, those debates are irrelevant to this issue. Let's make sure the debate over this is relevant.
Mr. Hodge, I just asked, and you don't have to answer the question. Do you mind sharing how old you are?
I do not claim to be an expert. I am only somebody who has an opinion. I am 50.
He doesn't want to answer.
I think he deserves an applause just for getting the guts to come here. Thank you. All right, can I have Hassan Muslim? Oh, sure, Councilman Abraham.
I think that for your comments, sir, I think the key word there is relevant. I think that's one thing we all try to focus on here. I tried to allude to that earlier, to make sure that when we make decisions that it's relevant to our entire community. And we have a very diverse community, and I don't mean from a nationality or faith perspective. We have one of the most unique communities in southeastern Michigan that blends big industry, small business, a beautiful residential neighborhood.